Welcome to Bob Talk, everyone. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Sister Katrina's off today, but we're grateful that we had the opportunity to join with you. So Pastor Melanie is going to help me share this next session on increased productivity. I was in Texas last week, and after we had our Bob Talk, so I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to do that, and so got good information and a little rest. How are you doing, Sister Mel? Sister Melanie? Uh-oh. She is.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me?
I'm here.
Okay. Couldn't hear you. You looked like you were
Yes.
frozen.
Okay. Yes, I am doing well. Yes, I am doing well today. This chapter has been a very busy week, and this chapter has actually helped me to set some goals and do some things, and it was right on time. It was right on time. How about you?
It's good. I've been sharing so much from this, and I've been sharing the book as well because it has really been a blessing in the season. It's sort of interesting how the Spirit works, sends you what you need when you didn't even know you needed it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we can jump right into it. I think last week we talked about increased productivity. I think was that what we talked about last week?
Raising necessity.
Raising necessity. That was okay. Yeah. So we identified what was necessary. We talked about bringing your best self to that. And so today we want to talk about increased
Mm-hmm.
productivity. This quote I want to read: sometimes being effective isn't enough because achievement can be hollow if it gets out of sync with who you are, what you really want to be doing, and what you are actually capable of. That's a pretty weighty topic, I think, because I think when I think of productivity, it speaks to producing stuff, but I'm reminded of the Trojan horse. That Trojan horse is it's a rocking horse that
Mm-hmm.
you've got a whole lot of movement, but not much productivity. And really understanding what productivity is part of, I think, the important thing as we embark upon understanding what does it mean to be productive. What does it mean to be productive? In fact, let's ask our audience, chime in. What does being productive mean for you? What does being productive mean for you? Just go there, put it in the chat, and if you can, go ahead and share this with someone. Just share it on your page. You can do that as well. Like and share, like and share. Hey, Angie Jones, Sister Tahira Ogletree, thank you for being here. So, what does being productive mean for you? What does being productive mean for you? There was a quote in the book that I highlighted, and it was a young lady, and what he identified that this young lady had learned the difference between just getting things done and reaching high performance productivity. Just getting things done. Productivity means getting the necessary things done. Yeah. And what it says though is that because many times we'll say I can check the box, but it's not, we haven't really accomplished the task because it's not the quality. This is so oh, that's Carolyn Jones. Okay. Angelette's name came up. All right, you got somebody else's phone. So anyway, we're accomplishing goals and daily tasks. In the high performance productivity, we identified that the goals are the key. Of course, it is a key. It is a key. It is a key. The key is not just wandering from activity to activity, but rather to state goals that you can work towards. A person can be very busy and even produce a lot, but without goals, that work is unfocused. And so when we think about what it's really saying, keeping the first things first, understanding that if your motivation
Mm-hmm.
is waning, in other words, you find yourself not being productive, it's probably important, and you don't get any enjoyment out of it, out of the work you're doing. It's probably because you don't have a goal. Think about the thing that you find taxing, the thing that you find hard to do, and then ask yourself, what's my goal? What am I trying to
Mm-hmm.
accomplish with this? I preached on Sunday. I talked about the Karate Kid, and the his mentor, his teacher, said he had to do wax on, wax off, wax on. He's like, what does this have to do with anything? I'm cleaning the car, not realizing that it seemed like busy, and it seemed inappropriate. It didn't seem like it was getting him anywhere, but it was developing the skill that was necessary for him to be able to accomplish what his ultimate goal was. And so sometimes those things, and understanding that this is the productivity is from me practicing what I need to do. And the activity may not seem like it's training you for the ultimate goal, but it can do that. Sort of like having conversations. There are those who are challenged with having conversations. They have a hard time starting conversations. The only way to get good at starting conversations is to start
To
conversations.
start. Yes.
Start
Yeah.
talking, and meeting strangers makes you hospitable. Go ahead.
And I think for me, when I think of productivity, it started for me when we talked about the chapter of clarity. And when I was clear on what I wanted and why I wanted it, so with the week being extremely busy, I had to stop because I started feeling anxious. And I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling anxious, there's a problem. So I had to stop and say, okay, let me think about what's important to me at this time. And so there are some things I just had to take off my plate or say, oh, I'll do this at a later time. There are some things I just had to take off my plate or say, oh, I'll do this at a later time. That's something that's part of who you are, your purpose, your passion. So it's not just like you can accomplish, like the lady in the book, you can accomplish a whole bunch of nothing. And still not feel.
So your connection is not as steady. But one of the things that I think, as we think about high productivity, there's some things that, of course, a goal is necessary. Also, energy, having energy. So identifying what it is that, because we talked about bringing the energy, and that means eating well, resting well, getting enough sleep, exercising, all the contributors to energy. So understanding, what do I need to do to have that energy? And then finally, focus. And focus says I can be sidelined for a variety of reasons. So one is reactivity. Think about this: the big flood of emails causes overwhelming and reactivity. Not to. In fact, my wife sent me a little. I don't know where she got the quote from, but it said, "You may not need to check your email first thing, because it can be a distraction, because you get overwhelmed." I get up in the morning, there's like 15 emails already there, and most of it is junk. But There can be one email that can sideline me. So understanding that that's reactivity. So I'm overwhelmed by things. Distraction. And distraction is another contributor to lost focus. Think about that. What is things that distract you? Multitasking isn't a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
um, you can only do one task at one time. Somebody says multitasking. So when you say you multitask, it's not real. It's not real. Some tasks are going to take a priority.
Yeah, and you can't completely focus on something, and it's like, wait a minute, okay, I'm having a conversation with you, and you're doing something else. It's like, oh, I'm multitasking. It's like, no, you're ignoring my conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's like, no, you have to stop, focus, and then because then you have both things in your head and you're not really focused on either one of them, so it's a huge distraction.
Now there are those who realize that they need white noise to focus. So I understand that sometimes you need quiet music, but you're not really focused in on the music. It's just setting the atmosphere. But
Mm-hmm.
it can be a distraction if it's words and music, and the next thing you know, you listen to that and you don't know what you were doing. So
Mm-hmm.
but focusing in on it says that my brain is still processing and understanding focus. And then the last one is just interruptions. And we all know that when we are interrupted at work, it takes a bit of time to get back on track. I think that
Mm-hmm.
was one of the things we talked about is in transitions is realizing that when I get interrupted, I have to transition back into work. So it says I may take a moment or two, breathe, and identifying what is the thing that I need to do. And I embrace this, and I share this with someone today. Is that who is it that I want to show up in this situation? Who is it that I want to be sitting at this desk writing this letter? Who is it that I want to show up as that individual? I don't want to show up as the angry individual writing the letter to someone. I want to show up with understanding that I want to show compassion. So I need to be able to, and what they say, energize and focus and bring in the compassionate individual who's writing this. And that's important to realize that. So what are the interruptions? Going from one conversation to another is like you just had a fight and now you're trying to go but an interruption, if you was like, so I need uninterrupted, if it's going to be a productive conversation, that I can't, it needs to be uninterrupted.
Mm-hmm. And I know interruption for me, I have to set, because first thing in the morning, I like complete silence. And so Clyde know if I am sitting in my chair and I have like cover over me, is like, okay, she wants silence, so that I'm able to get that, to be able to set things up, to know, okay, this, don't interrupt me when you see this, so don't interrupt me at this particular time. So set some of those standards up so that people would know, okay. And sometimes interruptions just happen because they don't know, but if there's a way to be able to set some things up so that you know, okay, I can't be interrupted at this time.
What are some of the triggers? Because reactivity also speaks to me. The word that I would use is trigger, because you lose focus. So, what are some of the triggers that you have? I'm asking my listening audience. What are some triggers that can get you off focus? What are some distractions, things that distract you that can get you off focus? Are there things that you identify that's a trigger for me? And so understanding that. So if you could put that in the chat, please do. What are some of my triggers? What are some of the things that get me off focused? As you're doing that, I want to identify. So one of the things he talks about is work-life balance. Work-life balance. And so that's a term that's thrown around a lot. I think when we talk about work-life balance, and this I personally have to embrace because I tried to identify all of these things that are there. So there's the health, family, friends, intimate relationships, mission, work, finances, adventure, hobby, spirituality, emotions, self-care, because that's one of the things that is also included in that is, so how do I balance all of this? How do I, and what does that look like? And what he challenged me with, and I started to look at it myself, was that it's not balanced just because it has equal hours. It's not balanced just because I'm given equal time to it. It's not really about the time as much as it is about the quality,
Mm-hmm.
and identifying that in those things I'm focused in on that. So for me to have family time means that I am focused, that we may not get 5 or 6 hours, we may only get 30 minutes, but it's 30 minutes of focused time with the family. So we're not answering phones, we're not doing emails, we're not doing what's that the game on the phone, the Candy Crush. We're focused in on each other, and that is considered to be quality. That's balance. When you think about intimate relationships, it's spending time, and we're focused in on each other. When I am doing self care, I'm not working, I'm not trying to do other things. I'm really focused in on caring for myself. It is focused time. And so understanding that, when we think about that, think about not when do you have um, uh, a work-life balance, a work-life balance. Because when we become overwhelmed and what we call is stress, we need to relieve the stress. And so what is, people get stressed trying to have balance work, trying to have a work-life balance. So they get overwhelmed because I can't fit all this stuff in.
Yeah. And I think for me, when you ask the question, what triggers me, and I think Tihara said people. And so one of the things that trigger me is email and text notification. So whenever I hear that ding, and it's like, okay, let me check to see who this is, or let me check my emails, or let me check my Facebook page. So hearing that notification then is my trigger to then get off track. So I have to turn my notification off, so that, and remember to turn it back on, but turn it off, because I know as soon as I hear that, I'm going to want to find out, because it's like, oh, it might be important, or it's something that I have to hurry up and do. But that's a trigger for me.
One of the things I learned by this trip, so I went to Cushing, Texas. And it was interesting because it was, I had to fly. I actually flew from here to Denver, and then from Denver to Houston, and then I had a 2.5 hour drive from Houston to Cushing, and it was time that I said, this, I'm going to use this time as a time of self care, because I can look at it as stress. I said, but I had my phone. I listened to the book, and so I was able to listen. So it's like, okay, this is time that I've got to drive, but I can focus in. So I'm listening to the book. There's not a whole lot of other things going on. It's a beautiful country, but ultimately it was that opportunity to do that. And we got there, so I wasn't there a long time, but I was there long enough to have what Linda Folks identified was to have focus time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, blocking out the distractions and saying, this is my focus. This is what I'm going to be focusing my time on. And I think that's important when you start talking about work-life balance,
Yeah.
because I can be doing one thing, but my mind is all over the place and said, no, this is what I'm going to do.
And I like the part in the book with the 10 areas, when he said, what are your goals for each one of these areas?
That's good. Yes.
And I'm like, okay, what is my goal for this area? And really focusing on what that, because sometimes I just go through life. It's like, okay, nothing is off, nothing, my finances are fine, my relationship are fine. And then something comes up and it's like, okay, this is off. And so
Yeah.
the only way that I would know what that balance looked like, I
Is what
need to
the
be
goal
able
is.
to say, what are my goals for my health? And the goal can be, oh, I want to get healthy. Well, that's really not a goal. That's a wish. So,
Right.
so it's like, what does eating right look like? What does, my family life?
Yeah.
And it's because I got a call from a family member and they asked for my help. I'm like, oh, I got to be at church. Then I have to think about it. It's like, which one I have to weigh out to say, is this something that I can help them, because I go every Wednesday and this is just once in a while that they ask. So I can do that and listen online. So those things, to be able to say, don't tune either one of them out, but make sure
That's
I
good.
find out what priorities are for that particular moment.
I like that. I like that. That's a good takeaway. I had forgotten about it, but that's true. What is your goal for your intimate relationship? It can be encompassing, and if you don't have a goal, so anything is possible or nothing is possible without a
Impossible.
goal.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding what are my goals with my friends, and I have different sets of friends, and so what are the goals there, and then when I realize what the goal is, I can be focused, and so that focus is I'm not distracted, I'm not reactive, but I'm actually am being able to stay focused on this is what it is. Spirituality is, I think, is key. What is your goal spiritually? So meditation, Bible study, and prayer. What's the goal there? It's like I'm gonna pray all day. Is is that gonna fit in with the rest of your with the rest of your work life? Are you gonna be in balance? So looking at those 10 areas and identifying what are your goals. I know that with my health, one of the things that I've embraced is that I need to have some kind of physical activity, and so I work out at least 3 times a week. And whether that's with my trainer or not with my trainer, but that's part of what my goal is. And so I know that when I set that time, that's what it's for. So
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that he talks about in regards to getting productive is taking a break to increase productivity. Taking a break to increase productivity. So he identifies 2 to 3 minute break every 45 to 60 minutes of the day is optimal. One of the things that was funny, and as I think about this, um, I learned this when we were driving cross country. Um, I don't know if anybody's ever driven, but driving is like we trying to drive 10 hours straight, and I find myself nodding, trying not to fall asleep, and my eyes glazing over. But I realized that I drove better when I was able to take a break. So I just stopped at a rest area for 5 or 6 minutes. I didn't really have to use the restroom, but I just got out, walked around, and then when I came back, I was refreshed and I was able to drive that much better. It's that kind of thing where we recognize that sitting at the desk all day, he says, listen, take 2 to 3 minutes a break, so that you can stay focused, you can refocus. Sometimes you even come up with some better ideas when you do when you get a break, right?
Mm-hmm. Because I remember working in a call center, and that was one of the things that we did. It was because you couldn't leave your desk. So, as a team, as a fun activity, we said, okay, on the hour, we'll all get up and do squats. And so if you were on a call, you could still get up and do squats. But we did that, and it became fun, and it was like, okay, it's on the hour and you can hear the ding. And so one time we had a meeting, it was like a level up meeting. So the top managers was there and our team was in the meeting, and the manager was just talking and the bell rung and we all just got up and started doing squats, and he was looking around like, what are you guys doing? But it was fun, and and we were able to be very productive after that. But I thought that was pretty, it was pretty good.
I think the other thing that because this we identifying short breaks, but I think in life there's sometimes you need a break, a retreat, because somebody said we were just going to work right through, but even working right through is not productive. So sometimes like even going away, I told him, I said, this trip I just took, it was a break. I did something different. It was out of the norm. But take a moment and breathe, right? And then reassess,
Hmm.
and then you can re-enter in, go back into it. But that's important too.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that it identify is that time, that break, that 2 minute is not to go check emails. It's not to check text or social media, but it really is a break. Just break and breathe. Um, I call it a Selah moment. Just go back and sort of meditate. So um, the high performance people focus on the output that matters. And what he identifies is what he calls the PQO, the prolific quality output. Prolific quality output. It says that I want to know what the actual goal is. And high performing people focus in on the outputs that matter, not necessarily. So they look at what is being produced, not just that it's being produced, but the quality of what is being produced. That he identified what Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, LeBron James, Tom Brady, the greatest athletes of all time. When you research them, you understand how they become who they are. All you ever have to do is read is that they focused on the fundamental things that improve their overall physical and mental skills. Focus in on the things that will produce the output. Um, it was, I think, when I was in typing, it was funny because you weren't. In fact, I think one place they didn't even have the letters on the keys, so you couldn't even look at the letters on the keys. So it's like, so you have to know the keyboard, right? otherwise, otherwise you
Hmm.
try to guess. And so knowing that, it was like, so you need to really understand that it is a matter of knowing in your head what it is. And so as I'm reading, I know where the letters are. And so that's how you became good at typing, because it wasn't about stopping to read what was on the keyboard, but actually knowing that. But it's funny because I see
Hmm.
some folks who have gotten really good at it with two finger typing, because they've learned what the out of my father was a two finger typer, and so he but it was focused on. He's like, he didn't stop to go get a typing class, but he wanted to make sure I did. But it was identifying what the PQO was, the prolific quality output, making sure that I'm getting the output that I need. The two questions that you ask yourself, two simple questions. What are the outputs that matter the most to my personal or professional career? What are the outputs that matter the most to my personal or professional career? That might be a hard question for some of you if you haven't really defined what your career is. But understanding one of the things that's important for me is my career is really dependent upon my ability to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I that's what I do for a living. It's funny because people say you're always in meetings. Well, because that's what I do. So I'm in meetings, I'm talking. I like I couldn't go to all those meetings. Well, that's not your career. So what is it that you do? I need to be good at going to meetings and being able to have good meetings and good output, because good output from meetings produce good output for ultimately what the design is, which is really to help people to flourish and to be all that God's designed and purpose to them to be. So I need to be able to speak well. And so, what are the things that I need to do for that? What are the things? What is distracting me from focusing on the things that matter? What are the things that are distracting you from focusing on the things that matter most? When you
Mm-hmm.
think about that, and I think when you think about our, even when it comes to our marriages, what are the things, the outputs that matter most? And then what are the things that are distracting you from those things that matter most?
Mm-hmm. And I think for me, one of the things with my purpose, it is organization and helping people get organized. So actually, a distraction could be too much, too much information. And so the other day, I was just like feeling so overloaded with information. Like, I got to get this information, got to get that information. And I just felt overloaded. So, people asking for help, I think, is another part of the distraction. So I was just sitting and it's like, well, like, are you okay? It's like, yep, I don't need to move, because if somebody else asks me to do one more thing, then I'm going to run and do that, forgetting that I had 10 things over here that I need to do. So it's like, nope. So I had to just sit and be still and not think, just sit and relax. So, but
We're almost
to
out of time. I want to get to these last two, but what came to mind was my mother shared something with us as we got after we got older. She said she used to make us. We used to clean up on Saturdays, and she said we make sure we have a clean house. So the goal was not to have a clean house. She said I regret not just having fun. She said going to the beach, going to the park, and spending time together. She said I made the clean house the goal, when the goal was really to have relationship and to build relationship. And I think when you think in terms of those, what is the output? I want healthy children. I want healthy family. And part of having a healthy family is not necessarily the house being clean can be a distraction. And you
mhm.
miss the goal that we want to be a family who loves one another, who cares for one another. And so, does the house need to be cleaned? Yes, but it can be a distraction from the real goal of what family is.
Mhm.
The next one talks about practice two, which is chart your 5 moves. Charting your 5 moves is simply focusing on the things that actually matter and condensing them down into 5 things that will help you reach your goal. So identifying, so charting your moves. So 5 moves, 5 people who
I'm
have.
sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. What's the biggest goal or dream that you want to achieve right now? Think
Mm.
about that. What is the biggest goal you have in your life? What is the biggest thing you're trying to achieve? And that can be in relationship, that can be in your job, that can be in your church, or with your children. What are the five? What is the biggest goal that you want to achieve right now? Then you break it down into five moves that would be progressive or progress swiftly toward accomplishing that dream. So understanding what is the bare basics that I need to do. What are the things that I can do? What are the disciplines, if you will, that need to be in place for this goal to take place? The timeline for each move will be five people who have achieved that dream, who I could study, seek out, interview, or model after. So who have you seen transform a relationship? Who have you seen transform a career? Who have you seen that has transformed a ministry? And identifying what were the moves that they took. Um, Identifying that the activities that are bad habits, I'm going to cut out of my schedule so that I can focus more time on the five moves in the next 3 months. And identifying those things, because sometimes what we, again, like my mother said, she said, I was focusing on cleaning the house, but that really was not my goal. That wasn't the big goal. The big goal was to have children, because she said this when we were children. She said, I want my children to love one another. I want them to have close relationships. And what are the things that need to take place for that to happen? What are the things that need, what are the activities that need to take place? So I think that's important too. And then the third one is practice is get insanely good at key skills. Insanely good at key skills. Now, one of the things that I can play the keyboard. So I can play a little bit and I can read a few notes. But I'm never going to be a classic or a professional pianist. In fact, that is not something that those are not skills that I am good at. That's just it. So what do I do? I focus my attention and get mastery over the skills that I know I can do. Determine what your skill is and master it. Set
Mhm.
specific stretch goals on your path to developing that skill. What is it that you are good at? What is it that you are efficient at, and become insanely good with it?
Mhm.
I think the term that comes to mind for me is jack of all trades and master of none.
Good of none.
So identify what it is that I do really well. Identify the factors critical to success and develop your strengths in those areas. I could take piano lessons every day for a year, but I still will not be that. That's not what my skill is. Um, Develop visualizations that clearly imagine what success and failure look like. Melanie, have you looked at what skill you're good at, and then identified what it is that you need to do to become insanely good?
I think for me, mine is organizational skills. Um, and in order to become insanely good, for me, then would be to improve my computer skills. So if when I'm organizing, the better I become at the computer and putting stuff together. The other thing for me is doing a lot of reading so that I can see how others is like, oh, that's an easier way to do that. Here, let me, try that. And so for me, those are the things to make sure that I'm in. And now, the other part, because it's something that I have to develop in order to walk in my purpose, so to speak. So the other part that I'm currently working on is putting together curriculum, because people are asking me for stuff and I'm like, okay, I know how to do it, and people are asking me to do it. I just need to be able to package it. So because it's like it's ABC, you can't see ABC, and it's like no, I can't see it. But to be able to package it in a way to where, so that's a development for me to that I'm working on. So
That's good. That's good. At one point in time I realized that speaking was something I was doing, and I'm always teaching. I feel that's part of it, and so that's one of the reasons I went to Toastmasters, and
hmm
that was to improve my speaking, improve my ability to put it, organize it, and stretch. And so I continue to put myself out there to be better at it. Sometimes it's difficult listening to yourself.
it is.
And so but I do it. I listened, and sometimes I was like, oh, you did pretty good with that. But I'm
hmm
really listening to try to identify how I can improve,
Yeah.
because I don't want to just be good. I want to be insanely good.
Mhm. Yeah. And we are at 41 minutes.
Yes, and we're done. Thank you so much for joining us. We apologize for going over. Bob Talk is supposed to be 30 minutes. We are not insanely good at it yet, but we're going to practice. Let us pray. God, we just bless you. We thank you for this opportunity. Again, you've given us to share this with our viewers. We pray, God, that this would be a seed, a catalyst for those who will listen. Lord, it's our desire to bring hope and healing and restoration. Thank you for your spirit that indwells us and continues to lead and guide and direct us. And Lord, as we've identified, you send us what we need at the time that we need it. And so, God, we embrace that truth. We know that you are faithful to all of your promises. And so, God, as we seek to have clarity and seek to be more productive, Lord, that you would bring to us, reveal to us what it is that we need to focus in on and help us to focus. And sometimes, Lord, help us to understand that focusing is clearing our minds and allowing you to speak to us. And so, God, I bless you and I thank you for what you have done and what you're going to do. Until next time, in Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. We'll see you next time on Bob Talk.